Okay, here we go. This is the Dixie dresser mahogany that I painted an antique white color. And here's the bleach top. It's very light now. Mahogany is not typically this light. This is raw, it doesn't have any finish on it, so it'll be darker when the finish goes on. I'm going to zoom in on a little scratch here because it's significant, and I'll tell you more about that later. But you want to prepare your surface and get out all the marks. You won't have a chance to sand those out later. You have to do it all before the bleaching. So this is the dresser, and this is the example that we're going to do today. So, Drexel campaign style dresser, and I think it's walnut. It's not super dark, but it's going to get a lot lighter with the bleach. So first off, we're going to do our bleach kit. Make it ourselves. We start with half a cup of water. Normal tap water, not hot, not cold. And then we're going to mix in slowly. This is very important. The water starts off in the jar first. You add the lye to the water. Don't do it the other way around. It'll spatter. So let's put our lye in slowly. First half teaspoon going in. I'm going to swirl that a little bit. Now this reaction between lye and water, you're just creating some homemade Drano, creates some heat. And this little jar will get warm, like a cup of coffee. That's why we add it slowly. So we're just letting it mix a little bit, let it sit. It's cloudy. We're going to add 1.5 teaspoons all together, doing half teaspoon increments. I'm going to swirl that around. Still cloudy, of course. Getting warmer. 1/3 half teaspoon goes in. Now I'm going to stir it. We're doing it outside. We want to be in a well-ventilated area. There are some fumes that come off of this. They don't particularly smell like anything, but don't really want to inhale them. And if you want, you can just walk away from this and come back and stir it later. This is the weak lye solution. It's not even as strong as what you'd put down in your drain. So, this is sodium hydroxide, or otherwise known as lye. The reason you want to use this kind of lye is that it is not Drano. It doesn't have any foaming agents in it. It's just pure, straight, unadulterated sodium hydroxide. The crystals are white, as you saw. You get it at Ace Hardware, but you could probably get straight lye anywhere. Now we're going to put this aside. We don't need that anymore. And because this is a little warm, it's not hot, it's just warm, I'm going to set that aside too. And we're going to use, instead, this lye that I made yesterday. It's the same combination. It's cool now. Now we want to make our mixture of lye and peroxide. So we use 40 volume peroxide clear. It's 12% peroxide in solution. Typical wood bleach kit uses 27%, but that's not available to us, and we just can't get it, so we have to be patient and use a lower percentage of peroxide using the 40 volume. So I'm going to pour off a little bit of this lye into this container, about halfway up. I wish I had someone to hold the camera, sorry. And now we're going to put in the same amount of peroxide. Okay, cap everything off, put it away. Okay, now we're ready to use this over here. This is the drawer we're going to bleach, and on the left is the control drawer, so we'll be able to see the two different colors. Start off by sponging on our bleach. So I like to use these little sponges, and here I am. I'm going to put it on now. You can see how dark this wood is. See the foaming? The wood is very dark when it's not dry. This has been stripped and sanded. It gives a false sense of how light it is, but then once you put something wet on it, then you can really see the true color of the wood. This is really quite red. I want to get that red out. And that's what I'm trying to do when I bleach wood. Get the red out. Sometimes it's orange. Mostly it's red. So we don't want to put so much on that it's pooling. That could create an area where it's too light. Keep it even. Want to keep it wet. We want to just move this bleach around. Okay. You can see a little foaming action over here. If we had 27% peroxide, we'd see more foaming action. But because we're not able to buy peroxide in that percentage, we just have to apply more coats. This could take 3. Here's some foaming right here. I just keep on rubbing it back in. One of the websites says keep it wet for a while, and it'll work better. So let me tell you more about what the lye does. The lye opens up the grain, and the bleach obviously bleaches the tannins. This yellowing that we see in the foam, I believe, is tannins getting mixed in with the peroxide and coming to the surface. So I kind of just keep on rubbing it around with my sponge. If I see a dry spot, I just keep going over it, trying to see the foam here. That's a good sign, because that's pulling up tannins. That's what we want. All right. Now back to the peroxide. I'm going to let that dry, and show you how much tannin is coming out of this piece by dropping it in some water. You can clean this out. See how dark that is, how much red orange is in your sponge. I like to rinse it out as I'm going. It doesn't say to do that on the box, but I do. Some of the tannin just stays on the top. We don't want it to soak back in there. We want it to be gone. All right, so back to my dresser up in here. Remember that scratch I told you about? You have to get all your scratches out before you start bleaching, and here is why. The bleach is only covering the top layer of wood. So if you come back in later and aggressively sand, or you think there's a spot that should have been removed, you don't like the fact that this little spot is here, it's kind of too late, because you can't sand hard on this. You're going to get down to red. And that's what happened right here. I did not know this. This bleach doesn't go very deep. So I sanded a little too hard over here on this scratch, and I made a big red circle. So I had to start all over again. I had to make this new bleach so that I could remove that big red circle. It was about this big. So I just worked it in and spread it out, kept it as even as I could. Once you get your piece as light as you want it to be, you're going to come in with some vinegar and water. So I've already mixed that. This kind of vinegar. It's already mixed. Here's the vinegar water we're going to use. We're going to sponge it on the same way as the bleaching. Now, over here, you can see there's been a change. Looks different from that one. To me, I can tell there's been some lightening. It's not too soon to go on with the next application. I'm going to start putting on some more bleach. Can you see the difference now? It's not nearly as red when it gets wet. So the results are immediate. You don't have to wait. A lot of people have talked about using Clorox. Not a fan of that. I don't believe it works very well. I know what it does do is leave chlorine residue on top of your piece. And that can give the illusion that your piece is getting lighter because the chlorine powder goes down in your grain and makes you think that you've bleached your wood. That chlorine powder is very hard to remove from deep in the grain, and I don't like doing it. You have to rinse it an awful lot, and then you have to sand it in the end, and you shouldn't inhale that. So for me, this is less toxic. It's very easy to use, no dripping. Getting some really quick results here. I like what I'm seeing here. When this is dry, it'll be lighter than the control drawer on the left. So I'm just working it around, pushing it down in the grain. I'm an amateur photographer, so excuse my terrible video. I hope you're getting the idea. So, I like what I'm seeing. I like that this is lightening. If I weren't holding the camera, I'd move it into the sun now and let it dry a little bit. I really think this is going to do the trick, certainly after the third coat. Okay, now I'm going to rinse this again and show you how dark that water is getting. This stuff doesn't need to get back into the wood. Get rid of it, rinse it out. I think I'll probably just put on one more coat even though it's not dry yet. Put on some new bleach. Keeping it even. Alright, if I knew how to splice two videos together, I would come back after this was dry and show it to you. So this is the bleaching technique. I think the best I can do is show you a before and after, and a side-by-side comparison of these two drawers. Foaming. I always like to just sort of work that around, keep it wet. As one of the woodworkers said, keep it wet, it'll work longer. It'll work better, rather. So that's what I'm trying to do. Okay, so let's talk about lye. We know that we use lye to clean our drains. It's very, very concentrated lye solution coming out of a Drano bottle. Trust me, this is much less concentrated. And of course, we're wearing gloves and goggles. But you can see that when we mix the lye in this little jar right here, there was no spattering. It didn't bubble up like a volcano. There was no danger. I plan to just pour the leftover lye down the drain. There's no need to save it. I can make more lye. I can make a gallon of lye for $5, so I'm not going to save it. So the lye is to open the grain. The peroxide is to bleach the wood. And that's what we've achieved here. We've created this kind of a wood bleach kit that you can no longer buy at a big box store. You cannot buy this. And that's because the 27% peroxide that used to be in the bottle labeled B. This is the lye. They work together when you mix the lye and the bleach. So some methods